There are a number of conclusions you might jump to if one were to say that TikTok is the worst of the worst. And none of these conclusions would necessarily be foregone, because TikTok probably is the worst of the worst. One commonly cited reason I've seen is the way it promotes sexuality and certain types of behavior, and that's certainly something you could cite. And another reason you might cite is that TikTok's owned by ByteDance, and ByteDance is a very, very large Chinese corporation that is fully in bed with the CCP. And we all know that any actor in the context of China, which is to say a business actor, is not free of political influence, and I do mean direct political influence. And so it's not a completely insane assumption to make that perhaps the intentions of ByteDance via TikTok are not the best, because it's also not an insane assumption to make that the CCP's intentions towards the rest of the world are also not the best. And these would all be reasons you could cite. But the reason I think TikTok is the worst of the worst, and why it's such a tremendously bad influence on the youth and human beings in general, is perhaps none of these more obvious, if not conventional, reasons. And specifically, I think the reason is attention and attention span. So let me elaborate. Human attention is a very, very difficult thing indeed to garner. And if we move to an ancestral environment, thousands, if not tens of thousands of years in the past, you have a situation where attention, generally speaking, is directed towards a few activities. Survival, maybe sometimes some kind of play, especially when you're young, and reproduction, and that's about it. Everything revolves around that, with a few exceptions. You might want to expand the idea of play to ceremony or what have you. These are things that are certainly plausible in an ancestral environment. But going hand in hand with that is a very simple idea that there weren't a lot of distractions back then. So if you were focused on a hunt, if you will, trying to track something down, whatever the nature of that beast might be, wild boar, woolly mammoth, take your pick, you're going to be highly focused on that task. And it could take many, many, many hours to achieve it. It could take a very long time indeed to track down a large, dangerous animal such as a mammoth and successfully kill it. In fact, that's not what they usually did. In the past, they tried to drive it off a cliff. It was a strategy, but even that took a long time and was difficult and dangerous. But focus and attention was there, and it was not permissible in any real sense to have distractions thrown your way, thrown you off the task at hand. And likewise with more mundane tasks that our ancestors might have faced. And our ability to focus and purposely direct our attention towards certain activities versus others is probably, amongst other qualities that human beings have, one of our unique qualities that has allowed us to get this far in the world compared to other animals. Which is not to say that a predator such as a leopard would not hyper-focus on their own hunt, but we're talking about the ability to focus on more conventional things such as surviving and reproducing, and siphoning that ability to direct attention from that to new activities, whether it's building certain types of tools, building buildings, erecting civilization itself, writing, arithmetic, and all these things that are ultimately derivative of our ability to focus in a way that is simply not possible for other animal species. And one of the big risks with the internet has always been that it competes for our attention. Many people, myself included, constantly find ourselves distracted by minutia and distracted by things that are redirecting our attention from tasks we want to focus on to other things that are more mundane, irrelevant, and ultimately lead you to procrastinate, to dawdle and diddle around and not get done what you need to get done, but more importantly, at times, not just what you need to get done, but what you want to get done. Which is to say, you might very well have a task in mind, maybe something you want to understand, and so you engage in self-study, you're researching things online, and sure, some people are very good about staying focused, but the internet being what it is, and YouTube specifically being very much what it is, these things typically compete for your attention. But TikTok, despite all the other evils that you might mention with respect to it, takes all of this to a whole new level. Because it's one thing if you stumble across a video on YouTube whose topic is something you hadn't encountered before that interests you, that nonetheless is a distraction and keeping you from your quote-unquote real work or your real tasks, because typically videos on YouTube are a bit longer than TikTok, and we'll get into that in a bit, and at the very least you might have learned something new. Maybe it's completely useless, maybe it has no application whatsoever in your life, but you still learned something. And there still is a modicum of attention required that you purposely focus on a video, even if it's only a few minutes long. TikTok has broken away from all known conventions of attention span to perfect the 15 to 20 second video. And I believe, though I'm not entirely sure, that TikTok has a limit of about a minute. So anything that goes over a minute is not plausible. And so attention and focus take on whole new meanings in this context, because basically you need none. And the idea is to convey a message that is as short and brief as possible, and it's not really a message so much as signaling, that will keep people's focus for that amount of time and no bit longer. It goes without saying that I think this is a very dangerous trend, because again, the hallmark of being a human being is our ability to focus for long periods of time on certain tasks in order to perform and achieve the extraordinary. And by extraordinary, I don't mean magic or even something incredible, but rather things that differentiate us from other animals. Your ability to study and learn something, whatever that subject might be, is contingent on your ability to focus and how you direct that attention and focus. And something like TikTok makes that absolutely impossible, because there's virtually nothing under the sun that you can learn in 15 to 20 seconds. And the same couldn't be said for a 5 to 10 minute video, and certainly not videos that are several hours long. And so the concern here is the fact that so much of the youth is enthralled by and enraptured by TikTok because it's popular. And I have to admit, of course, it's a selected population. Not all members of the denizens who have been born in the 21st century participate in TikTok. There are certain looks requirements, if you will. You have to be reasonably good looking at the very least. But even granting that, it certainly creates a trend for that entire generation, which is to say, everyone born in 2000 onwards is part of that generation, the Zoomers. And things like TikTok, frankly speaking, set cultural and social trends that can be defining, potentially, for the rest of one's life. Maybe not always, but frequently. And as much as our ability to focus on things is endemic and highly variable between individuals, for example, one individual might have attention deficit disorder, another might not, it is also a matter of practice and reinforcement. And TikTok does the opposite. TikTok is the antithesis of building those skills of focus and directed attention. And the fact that it's arguably, in some sense, more popular than YouTube and continues to grow in popularity is reasonably alarming. Forget about the silly fashion statements made there with the pseudo-retro 80s style earrings and strange flop haircuts that the gentlemen have there, and the booty shaking that never ends on TikTok. We're talking about non-information being conveyed as information. And despite it being a selected population, long-term, that's not good. We want human beings to be able to focus, learn things, understand things, and potentially advance civilization, if possible. But the combination of TikTok being effectively a branch of the CCP, you might argue, in some way, although not directly, as well as the lewd and silly things they promote, and most importantly, the fact that it is antithetical to the best qualities that human beings can engender in themselves, well, that is very alarming indeed. And I think going forward, we might see broader trends that are reflective of the 10 to 15 second attention span meme that TikTok has become. Anyway, do share the video, like the video, hit the bell icon to be informed of forthcoming videos. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always, if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. May the gods watch over you, and you take care.